And Baby the Blue Ox. Paul Bunyan was a giant lumberjack. He stood 63 axe handles high, give or take a handle. When Paul shouted timber and swung his axe, 100 trees would fall. Back in Paul's day, America was growing fast, and people needed woods to build houses and towns. Farmers needed wide land clear so they could grow crops. Paul shows an early talent for knocking down trees. As a baby, he rolled over in his sleep one night and knocked down miles of main forest. He always knew that he'd be a lumberjack, and soon it was time to follow his dream. After the log northwards, he told his parents, "Good luck, son," they said. "Watch where you step." Paul got a job at a logging camp. Chopping down trees was easy, but he wished he had someone to help him haul the logs to the river. Then came the winter of the blue snow. Beautiful blue snow fell for days. Paul came across a snowdrift as big as a house with two hairy blue ears sticking out of it. "Moo!" it softly bellowed. Paul lifted those ears and came out of a sticky baby ox that had been stuck in the snow. The ox was blue all over from the cold. Paul brought the ox back to camp and cared for him all night. In the morning, the ox was feeling better, but he stayed blue. He licked Paul on the neck. Paul laughed. "I'll call you baby," he said. Then they went to the Michigan, where Paul set up his own logging camp. Baby grew like crazy, and soon it was so big that folks could hardly see him end to end. None of the local watering holes were big enough for Baby to drink from. Paul solved that problems by using his eyes to dig the Great Lakes. Paul's logging camp was filled with hundreds of lumberjacks. They were a hungry bunch, and their favorite food was pancakes. More pancakes, they called, but the cooks couldn't make enough. Throughout Sam, the chef cook feared that the men would quit if they didn't get more pancakes. "Don't worry, Sam, I'll solve this," Paul said. Paul sat and thought about the problem a while. Then he and Baby disappeared. About a week later, Baby returned to the camp pulling an iron giggler that was a mite wide if it was an inch. Paul had built it in the big city. When Sam saw the griddle, his eyes nearly popped out of his head. "Now we're cooking," he cried. Paul ordered the fire built under the griddle. Baby and Edgar to have drank all the water out of the lake. The cook used the empty lake bed as a bowl to mix the batter in. Mashed chefs laps of bacon into their boots and scattered around on the griddles. When it was all greased up, the cook poured their powder. Soon, 500,000 pancakes were rubbing on the griddle. There was even a pipeline going straight to the tables. The lumberjacks were finally happy, and no one ever quit Paul's camp. Those pancakes were too good. When the logging was done in one spot, Paul simply lifted the camp into wheels, and Baby pulled it to a new place. One time, they set their own camp next to the Twisty River in Wisconsin. That river was so crooked that the lumberjacks, sent floating down would end up in an awful jam for weeks at a time. The sawmills downriver were waiting for logs that never came. Paul sat picking his teeth with a pine tree while he thought about the problem. Paul has all his blacksmith forged a giant chain. He hooked one end of the chain to baby's harness and the other end to twist it in the river. Pull, babe, he commanded, and baby pulled. Sweat poured off baby, but the river wouldn't budge. Harder, Paul said. Baby grunted and pulled harder. The muscles on his neck stood out like tree roots. His legs dug in the earth, and it was barely nearly touched the ground. But the old river is crooked as ever. Then Paul saw the bend in the river give a silver. It's working, he cried. Baby let out a bellow that would hurst away to Kansas. He gave a mighty tug, causing the river to snap like a wig. Then, with a crack, it lay straight as a flagpole. Everyone cheered. Paul stuck out his chest with Peter so much that his bottom popped off his shirts. Paul and Baby went to do many great things. They were last seen walking in the vast wilderness of Alaska. Frogs up. They would still sometimes hear the mighty voice in the woods calling out, "Timber!" followed by a rumbling moo. So this is a moo story, or this is a movie. Glossary. Batter. A thick liquid mixture used to make cakes and other foods. Forge. To heat and hammer metal into a desired shape. Griddle. A heavy flat plate made of iron that is heated and used to cook food. Harness. A set of straps used to hitch an animal to something. Logging camp. A temporary living and working area for lumberjacks. Lumberjack, a person who works in the logging industry, often cutting down trees. Syrup, a thick liquid that is sweet and sticky. Talent, a natural ability or skill. Oh no, not this. Entertain. Read this sentence. Paul Bowen was a giant lumberjack. What does lumberjack mean? What sentence shows that this story is a fantasy? Why was baby blue? Why did Paul Bowen do that could really happen? Read this sentence. All fogged and giant change. Fog me. Let's see. Where was Paul born? When did Paul Bowen and baby? When did Paul Bowen and baby go to Alaska? Let's see. Why did Paul decided to become a lumberjack? Which following was an opinion? Mommy, mommy, mommy. 10 out of 10.